Astrology is about recognizing and applying patterns that seem to have worked in the past. This is much like technical analysis in analyzing stock price movements. As with technical analysis, it works sometimes, and sometimes it does not seem to work. As an example of the latter, if you look at Steve Jobs' horoscope, I cannot make sense of it in the context of his extraordinary life. Astrology is highly complex and involves taking into account so many different inputs and recognizing patterns in them. A good astrologer usually gets it right about 70% of the time. When it really works, sometimes it works spectacularly so. One such case is Sam Bankman-Fried's chart, which is a real textbook case of astrologically explaining what has been going on his life during the recent past. Sam Bankman-Fried, otherwise known as SBF, his career has seen explosive growth and has ended with a big bang. Just today, November 3, 2023, he was found guilty on all 7 charges that were laid against him for defrauding investors and other financial crimes. For over a year, I had been wanting to analyze his chart, but no time of birth was available. Just yesterday, I happened to notice his time of birth listed in Astro Databank, and this had a AA Rodden rating, which is the highest rating in terms of reliability. In other words, totally reliable. This prompted me to do his chart, and what I saw was quite startling as it matched perfectly to what has been happening to him recently. Here is his chart. For those wanting to know the basis, I'm following Jyothish, otherwise known as Vedic astrology, and using the sidereal system with equal houses and the Lahiri Chitrapaksha Ayanamsa. I'm showing both the South Indian, which is the square one, and the North Indian, which is the diamond one, display style. But I'm more used to the South Indian style. Whenever I look at a chart, the first thing I do is to see if there are any extraordinary features. If there are, then these features usually control the person's entire life, and much of the analysis should be spent on these because it explains a lot of things. His lagna or ascendant is Taurus, which is a money rasi or sign. For a Taurus ascendant, the most important graha or planet is Saturn, since it owns the 2 very important 9th and 10th house in his chart. Saturn is the Yogakara for this ascendant, for the Taurus ascendant. There are 2 very prominent features in his chart. First, let us focus on the 9th house, which in SBF's case is Capricorn, which is the natural 10th house of career. A stellium of 3 grahas are deposited here: Saturn, Mars, and Venus. This in itself is a prominent feature of this chart. What makes it extraordinary is the very extreme tight conjunction of Saturn and Mars here. Both are at 19 degrees and 45 minutes, identically, and differ only by 9 seconds. This is extraordinary. This in itself is extraordinary, and what makes this conjunction off the charts extraordinarily is that both planets are extremely strong. Saturn sits in his own house, and Mars is exalted here, not far away from his exact degree of exaltation. The fact that the ascendant lord, Venus, also sits here emphasizes how crucial this Saturn-Mars conjunction is for the life of SBF. Clearly then, this house and the grahas here must be our first focus. This 9th house is the main house that shows higher education, ethics, luck, father, religion, and many more things. The other prominent feature of his chart is that there is another stellium of 3 grahas in his 8th house, Sagittarius. The conjunction here involves Rahu, Uranus, and Neptune. Uranus and Neptune are closely conjunct within 1 degree, and Rahu is not far away. The 8th house is the house of sudden events. disasters, lotteries, things that are deep and unknown, research, occult, death, and the management of other people's money, among other things. So in SBF's life, it assumes a special importance, especially because of management of other people's money, which was his main career. First, let us look at his background. Both his parents are well-known professors at Stanford University. The fourth house represents the mother, as does the moon. The moon is conjunct Mercury, a planet of communication and knowledge. Moon is also sitting in the nakshatra of Revati, a Mercury nakshatra, so there is double Mercury impact here. The fourth lord is Sun, which is sitting in the 10th, the house of profession, and directly aspecting his own house, which strongly suggests a profession related to knowledge and distribution of knowledge. The 9th house represents father in Jyothish, as well as higher learnings. Saturn is the lord of his 9th house and is sitting there, which is very strong and favorable. Saturn rules both the 9th and 10th, the 10th being the house of profession. These are very strong indications that his parents are associated with higher learning as a profession. Jupiter, the most benefit of the grahas, sits in the 4th house. He would have had an especially close relationship with his mother. Also, his home life must have been very comfortable. This also indicates that he must have done very well at school. SBF is regarded as genius-like, and he did go to MIT for college. Now let us move to the 9th and 8th houses, the main causes of the recent events in his life. Notice immediately that the 9th house, the house of fortune, has malefics on either side of it, Sun in the 10th and Rahu in the 8th. This is a classic case of Papakatri yoga, which has a negative impact on the 9th house and its inhabitants. As mentioned before, the extremely tight conjunction of Saturn and Mars in the 9th is the single most important feature of this chart. Mars is extremely strong here, being exalted, and so is Saturn, which it's in its own house. This tight conjunction can be extremely beneficial if handled correctly, and Mars and Saturn can support each other constructively, or it can be totally disastrous otherwise. Since it is his house, Saturn is the ruler here. If the rules of Saturn are followed, this can mean extraordinary benefits. This is what has happened to SBF's career until about 18 months ago. SBF made a mind-boggling fortune through sheer hard work and discipline, all Saturn attributes, by taking advantage of arbitrage in prices between different countries. This is a perfectly legal way of making money. Note that Mars rules the 12th house of foreign lands and the 7th house of contracts. Through his diligence in sticking to Saturnian rules, he was able to extract the positive qualities of the 7th and 12th houses. Exalted Mars in the 9th also indicates that he is extremely intelligent, and he was able to use this gift beneficially by pleasing Saturn through his hard work and discipline. However, things changed. He started making highly risky investments using client money without the client suspecting anything. He used their money for lavish living and spending, including donations of $60 million to politicians and expensive property purchases for his family and friends. These things are completely contrary to Saturn's wishes, and Saturn became inimical and started punishing him. Note that the Saturn-Mars conjunction happens in the 9th house, the house of ethics, so it's especially important that SBF behaved in a proper ethical way. The start of his unethical behavior made Saturn invoke the negative attributes of Mars' rulership of the 7th and 12th, including the death of his company, people turning inimical towards him, legal actions going against him, all 7th house things, and prison time and confinement, a 12th house property. So what has caused SBF to behave in unethical ways? The answer lies in the 8th house, the house of dealing with other people's clients' money, which was his main business. Rahu resides there, and wherever Rahu sits, it expands multifold the qualities of the grahas that are in conjunction with it. In this case, Uranus and Neptune. Rahu cheats and creates illusions, especially in the 8th house. Uranus is a planet of upheaval. Neptune is a planet of illusions, as if Rahu was not enough with illusions. So the illusion here is just expanded astronomically. When these happenings took place is clearly shown in the Dasha system. Before we get to it, I just want to point out some of the things that the divisional charts strongly support what is shown in the Rasi or D1. Look at D10, the divisional chart pertaining to profession. Both the ascendant lord, Saturn, and the 10th lord, Mars, combine in the 2nd house, a money house, which strongly suggests that is where his career is. The Navamsha chart, D9, is used for marriage partner, but also for other fortunes and business partners too. As in D10, the ascendant lord and 10th lord are again Saturn and Mars here. And they are conjunct in the 5th house this time, 5th house of stock market and investments, which is what essentially SBF was dealing with. See how the Saturn-Mars conjunction controls his horoscope everywhere, in every aspect. Now, let us look at the Dasha Bhukti sequence for the timing of events. SBF's moon is in Revati Nakshatra, so he starts off with Mercury Dasa. Mercury is a good planet for him, being the lord of the 2nd and 5th. Note that Mercury, the 2nd lord, is in the 11th. This in itself is an indication of wealth, although Mercury is debilitated here in Pisces. Up to the ages of being a young adult, your parents' chart will have more influence than your own. So let us move on to Venus Dasha, which started in the very beginning of 2015 and will last until the beginning of 2035. It's a long Dasha of 20 years. Venus is his Lagnesha or ascendant lord, and so is particularly important. Being the ascendant lord should give him a lot of benefits, especially sitting in the 9th house of fortune. However, Venus is also the lord of the 6th house, the house of disease and enemies. So these properties are also activated. Note that SBF has an ADHD problem and uses Adderall. This is widely publicized. Adderall is a highly potent stimulant that helps with ADHD issues. In fact, he even hired a psychologist to permanently work in his company in the same building where he was. Perhaps to have someone close by to prescribe him Adderall whenever he wanted. You'll see in many of his interviews and the videos that are publicly available that his leg sometimes constantly shakes during interviews. And this might have been signs of overdose of Adderall. I don't know. All of these are 6th house issues. Since Venus sits there, it stimulates the 9th house and all its habitants, including the extraordinary Mars-Saturn conjunction. The Venus Dasa started off exceptionally well. He did well during the Venus-Venus subperiod, the Venus-Sun subperiod. The Sun is powerfully located in the 10th house of career. The Venus-Moon subperiod, the Moon sits in the 11th house of gains, and extremely well during the Venus-Mars subperiod, harnessing the power of the Mars-Saturn in a positive way. The Rahu subperiod then started bringing all the 8th house matters discussed before: lies, deceptions, upheavals, and illusions. Note that the Rahu subperiod here is particularly bad because it is 12 houses away from the main Dasa Lord, Venus. It was during the Venus-Rahu-Jupiter sub-period that things came out in the open and SBF got into trouble. Note that Jupiter is 8 houses away from Venus, the Dasha Lord, enhancing all the 8th house matters that are already playing. SBF's trial took place during the Venus-Rahu-Mercury sub-period. Note that Mercury has no help here because Mercury is debilitated in Pisces. There is further confirmation when you look at an alternate dasha system. In the Charad dasha system, the timings are based on which houses are the most influential at a particular time, not the planets or graha. Note that the Capricorn dasha rules from 2017 to 2029. Capricorn is where all the action is taking place currently. Venus is there, as well as the all-important Saturn-Mars conjunction. When astrology works magically like this, it's just so beautiful. If you learned something from this presentation, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for other such educational videos. Thank you.